A steel door slams shut. Deep inside ADX Florence, the most secure prison in the United States, a small man in a beige uniform sits alone in a concrete box. No phone, no contact visits. 23 hours a day in near total isolation. His name is Joaquín El Chapo Guzmán. For years, US agents called him the most powerful drug trafficker in the world. Magazines put him on billionaire lists. Narco ballads turned him into a legend. From the mountains of Mexico, his orders pushed cocaine, heroin and meth into cities across the globe. But how rich was El Chapo really? And what did that fortune cost Mexico and the rest of the world? On paper, he looked like the perfect villain for a headline. A poor farm kid turned cartel boss whose product fed addiction from Chicago to Madrid. At one point, Forbes even listed him as a billionaire, then quietly backed away when they realized something simple and uncomfortable. You can't really audit a ghost economy. So in this story, we're going to do something different. We'll trace his rise from the mountains of Sinaloa, show how his cartel actually made money, look at the violence and corruption that kept it all running, follow his spectacular escapes and final fall, and then ask, what does one of history's richest crime lords really mean? To understand El Chapo's money, you have to start in a place where almost nobody has any. Guzmán was born in the 1950s in La Tuna, a tiny village in the mountains of Badiraguato, Sinaloa, one of the poorest regions in Mexico. Roads were rough, schools were basic, and legal jobs were scarce. What the region did have was land good for opium poppies and marijuana plants, and a long tradition of growing illegal crops to survive. As a boy, Joaquín helped his family in the fields. People who knew him as a kid describe a skinny boy selling oranges or candies to bring in extra cash. He didn't finish school. There was no elite education, no business degree, no secret trust fund. Just a hard local lesson. Legal work kept you stuck. Illegal crops might change your life or end it. By his late teens and early 20s, Guzmán was working for bigger players, helping move marijuana and opium paste. Eventually, he connected with the Guadalajara Cartel, led by Miguel Ángel Félix Gallardo, the godfather of Mexican trafficking. There, he earned a reputation, always on time, obsessed with logistics, willing to use violence when necessary, but more interested in moving product than showing off. From the beginning, his path to riches was less about genius and more about geography, poverty, and opportunity in an illegal market that was exploding thanks to demand from the United States. In 1989, everything changed. Félix Gallardo was arrested, and the Guadalajara cartel cracked apart. Territories were divided up. Former lieutenants turned into bosses overnight. Guzmán and other Sinaloan traffickers used this chaos to build what would become the Sinaloa Cartel. El Chapo's talent wasn't giving big speeches or posing for cameras. His real strength was understanding that in the drug world, power flows along routes. Control the routes and you control the money. He helped secure corridors from the mountains of Sinaloa to Pacific ports and up to key points on the US border. Drugs could move from jungle labs and mountain fields to border cities in a tightly managed stream. Then came the tunnels. Under his leadership, Sinaloa pioneered cross-border tunnels into the United States, some with lighting, ventilation, even rails for small carts or motorcycles. On the Mexican side, drugs arrived hidden in trucks, trains, and cargo ships. On the US side, they emerged in warehouses and stash houses, already past the hardest line of defense, the border itself. The cartel also diversified. They expanded beyond cocaine into marijuana, heroin, and later methamphetamine, tapping into new markets and higher profit margins. They used front companies in agriculture, transportation, and real estate to launder money and hide shipments. They built networks in major US cities and later in Europe and Asia. This wasn't just a street gang anymore. It looked and acted like a multinational logistics company. Only its main product was illegal drugs, and its compliance department carried assault rifles. At the center of that organization stood El Chapo, now clearly rich, powerful, and dangerous. Then the world started putting numbers on him. In 2009, Forbes magazine added a new name to its list of world billionaires, Joaquín Guzmán Loera. They estimated his net worth at around $1 billion. The logic seemed simple. If his cartel moved billions of dollars worth of drugs, surely the boss must be a billionaire. The story went global. Overnight, El Chapo wasn't just a cartel leader. He was the billionaire drug lord, the narco king with Escobar-level money. For a lot of people, this was when he shifted from being a criminal to a dark kind of entrepreneur in the public imagination. But drug money doesn't work like stock options or real estate portfolios. A cartel's income gets chewed up fast. Bribes to police and politicians, payments to farmers, cooks, drivers, pilots, smugglers, hitmen, lawyers, and money launderers. There are seizures and lost shipments. There's the constant need to buy weapons, vehicles, safe houses, and new routes. There's cash buried, burned, or stolen by allies who suddenly disappear. Outside his inner circle, nobody knew how much Guzmán spent on protection, luxury, or simply staying alive. Even inside, people might not know the full picture. There's no audited financial statement, no tax return, no reliable paper trail. Eventually, Forbes quietly dropped him from the billionaire list and admitted what should have been obvious from the start. Trying to calculate the net worth of a fugitive cartel boss is mostly guesswork. At his US trial years later, prosecutors argued that his network had generated more than $12 billion in drug revenue. That number is shocking, but it's crucial to understand what it is and what it isn't. It's not his personal bank balance. It's an estimate of the money that flowed through his operation over time. So was El Chapo really one of history's richest crime lords? In terms of the volume of drug money he controlled, probably yes. In terms of actual personal spendable wealth, the real answer is no one on the outside can say for sure. What we can say is that whatever the number was, it rested on a foundation of violence and fear. The Sinaloa Cartel didn't keep its roots and markets just with clever logistics. It ruled territories through brutality. Rivals were kidnapped, tortured, and killed in public ways designed to send messages. Bodies were left hanging from bridges, dumped on roads, or buried in mass graves. In many towns, people woke up not knowing who really controlled their streets that week, the government or the cartel. Guzmán's organization fought bloody wars with rival groups like the Tijuana Cartel, the Juarez Cartel, and the Beltrán Leiva organization. As these groups battled for routes and cities, ordinary people paid the price. Entire neighborhoods emptied out. Families fled to other states or even other countries. Thousands simply disappeared. Corruption was the other pillar of his power. The cartel paid off local cops, federal agents, customs officers, soldiers, and politicians. The rule was simple: plata o plomo, silver or lead. Take the bribe and look the other way, or refuse and risk your life. When that system is in place long enough, it doesn't just protect one man. It rewires entire institutions. And on the other side of the border, in the United States and beyond, demand kept driving the business. The money that made El Chapo powerful came from people buying his product. Cocaine lines in nightclubs, heroin injections in back alleys, meth in rural towns, pills cut with fentanyl, overdoses, addiction, broken families, and overwhelmed health systems. These are part of his real balance sheet, even if they never show up in a net worth estimate. It's easy to say, billionaire crime lord. It's harder to picture all the lives that number sits on top of. Ironically, what really supercharged the myth of El Chapo's wealth wasn't his business skills. It was his talent for escaping. In 1993, Mexican authorities arrested him in Guatemala and sent him to prison. For many bosses, that would have been the end of the story. For him, it was the beginning of the legend. In 2001, Guzmán escaped from a high-security Mexican prison, reportedly hidden in a laundry cart with the help of guards and officials on his payroll. The message was clear. His money didn't just buy cars and houses, it bought freedom. For more than a decade, he stayed at large, running the Sinaloa Cartel from hiding. Rumors placed him in mountain ranches, underground bunkers, and fortified safe houses. Each year, he remained free. His image as an untouchable billionaire grew. In 2014, Mexican Marines finally captured him in a condo in Mazatlan. It was presented as a huge victory. But in 2015, he did it again. Another escape, this time through a tunnel that seemed almost unbelievable. It ran nearly a mile to a hatch under the shower in his cell, complete with lighting, ventilation, and rails for a small motorcycle. Those escapes didn't just humiliate Mexican authorities. They fed the idea that El Chapo's money was almost limitless. To the public, a man who can tunnel out of maximum security prison twice must be rich beyond imagination. The reality was more complicated, but by then the myth was out of control. By his second escape, El Chapo wasn't just a Mexican embarrassment, he was an international one. In 2016, Mexican forces captured him again after a shootout in Los Mochis. This time, the government moved faster. In January 2017, Guzmán was extradited to the United States to face federal charges in New York. Whatever protection his money had bought him at home meant far less in a Brooklyn courtroom. His trial in 2018 and 2019 pulled back the curtain on how his cartel worked. Jurors heard from former partners, bodyguards, and logistics chiefs. They talked about suitcases filled with cash, military-grade weapons, bribed officials, torture sites, secret tunnels, and multi-ton drug shipments heading north. The US government presented El Chapo as the ruthless CEO of a global narcotics corporation, a man who ordered murders as casually as he approved shipments. After a 3-month trial, Guzmán was found guilty on all counts, including running a continuing criminal enterprise and trafficking enormous quantities of cocaine, heroin, meth, and marijuana. He was sentenced to life in prison plus 30 years and ordered to forfeit more than $12 billion. Today, he sits in ADX Florence under the highest level of security America can offer. No tunnels, no laundry carts, no king-size cell. Whatever his true net worth once was, the man himself is now worth nothing on the outside. His wealth bought him time, power, and a worldwide legend. It did not buy him a happy ending. And yet, taking El Chapo off the board didn't end the story. The Sinaloa Cartel continues to operate, led by other figures, including Ismael El Mayo Zambada and several of Guzmán's sons, often called Los Chapitos. The products have shifted heavily towards synthetic drugs like fentanyl, cheaper to make and deadlier in tiny doses. The money keeps flowing, so does the violence. Meanwhile, El Chapo lives on in songs, series and social media posts. To some, he's a folk anti-hero who beat a corrupt system. To others, he's a symbol of everything broken in Mexico's war on drugs and in global demand for narcotics. So, was he truly one of history's richest crime lords? Maybe, if you look at the scale of the business he controlled. But the more important question isn't how many billions passed through his hands. It's this: what kind of world makes men like him possible? And who is getting rich now that he's gone?